Welcome everyone to my first game recap from the St. Louis Masters. I just finished my game about half hour ago, and this is my first FIDE rated classical game in about a year and a half. I did play a warm-up tournament over the weekend that was US rated. I recapped all my games from that tournament in the previous video, link below if you want to check that out. But today was the start of a very strong tournament. This is one of the strongest fields I've ever been a part of in classical chess. First seed is Fabiano Caruana, and there's a lot of grandmasters playing. I'm seeded, I think, around 58 out of 70 players. And my first round opponent was Grandmaster Brewington Hardaway, who I actually played a few years ago. He's pretty young. I think he's 16 years old, and I think he's one of the youngest grandmasters in the US. When I played him a few years ago, it was part of an online match of streamers versus up-and-coming chess kids. Brewington was an FM at the time. The video is somewhere on my YouTube channel. I'll link it below, but I managed to beat him twice in that match. But coming into this game, I was the underdog. He has risen a lot in recent years, clearly higher rated than me, and I was looking forward to having a good fight. And the game started with pawn to e4. This was not a surprise. I did check Brewington's games beforehand. Pairings actually went up last night, so I did have a bit of time to prepare. I opted for my usual Sicilian defense, and after knight f3, I play pawn to e6. This is maybe the first small surprise on my part. More often I've been playing knight c6 recently, but e6 is still one of my main weapons in the Sicilian, and it does avoid certain sidelines like the Roslimo, which can be played after knight c6. And here I was expecting a few things that he didn't end up playing. He actually surprised me in this position with the move pawn to g3. And this was not part of my pre-game preparation. I think the last time I looked at this line was a few years ago. I did play against this in Biel I guess it was one of my last classical tournaments. If I can find the recap, I'll link that below as well. But I decided to play the same move I played in Biel, which is pawn to d5. Just challenging the center right away. And there's a lot of lines where after takes, pawn d4, black can end up getting an isolated queen's pawn, but at the same time there's very quick development, and I thought this was a good practical option. But he did not go for the main line. Instead, he played a bit of a sideline in this position, pawn to d3. And I was actually happy to see this move because d3 is the type of move that avoids most of concrete theory, and very soon we were both pretty much on our own and not relying on opening preparation. So I develop knight c6, he plays queen e2, which is perhaps a tricky move order, lining with my king, maybe some ideas of taking, and then I can't take back with pawn because there's a pin. So I opted here for knight g to e7, which essentially obstructs the e-file and makes it so if he takes on d5, I can take back with the pawn, or maybe potentially the knight. And there is a drawback with this move. It does block my bishop, but the plan is to play g6 and bishop to g7, which very soon happens after bishop d2, g6. And then he very confidently played pawn h4 here, which is a pretty typical idea in these structures, especially when black's committed to g6. If white gets in h5 and I don't have a great way to deal with it, it could be uncomfortable. So I respond with pawn h6, idea to meet h5 with g5 and keep the king side closed. He plays bishop f4. I play bishop g7, attacking his b pawn. He sees it and plays pawn e5, so blocking my bishop. And now we're entering a very typical structure that you see from a King's Indian attack. And the King's Indian attack is normally a setup-based opening. If I just go back, usually starting with knight f3, and it involves this quick d3, g3, bishop g2, e4, and very often if I have this setup, white will end up playing e5. So we essentially got a King's Indian attack from the Sicilian move order. And yeah, after bishop f4, bishop g7, e5, this is a structure I've played over the years, usually from the black side. And normally the plan for black is to focus on the queenside expansion. So after e5, I waste no time in grabbing space. I play pawn to b5. And this is very typical with this structure that black wants to just gain space on the queen side and eventually pawn storm on the queen side. So he replies with knight bd2. I play queen b6, he castles, and I play a5. So winning connect 4, continuing the space grab. And I'm holding off on castling kingside. I didn't think it was so necessary, and I just wanted to make as much progress as I could on the queen side. So he plays rook f to e1, and this is actually a very typical idea. Rook f e1 is the start of a sequence that you very often see in this structure where the knight will come to f1 and then either h2 or e3 and then g4. And especially because I've committed to g6 and e6, white has a long-term idea of eventually getting the knight to f6 to try and create some kingside attack. So I was well aware of it, and it's not the easiest thing to stop, so I just keep expanding on the queen side, pawn a4. He plays pawn to c3. I play bishop a6. He plays rook a c1. So trying to at least be ready for any pawn break I go for. And here, maybe I played a little bit too slowly. There are options for black. I could throw in castling. I could play knight f5. I could play b4. But I played another, what I thought was a very useful move in the position, rook to d8. I figured that the rook does not want to be on the long diagonal of the bishop. And I was envisioning that if I ever play b4 and white plays c4, then there's many cases where the d file can open and my rook can be very useful on d8. So he continues, knight to f1, and I go for the break, pawn b4. And I want to note that time-wise, I was feeling very comfortable. It felt like the position was kind of playing itself. And he was taking a lot of time in the early middle game, maybe trying to figure out what his plan would be. But I'll admit that after I played pawn b4, I maybe slightly underestimated his next move, knight to e3. During the game, I was mainly looking at knight h2, but knight e3 makes a lot more sense, just more centralized. And in some sense, it might discourage knight f5 because I probably don't want to trade knights on f5. And he has this idea of knight g4 into f6. And actually, if he gets knight g4, then I'm a bit tied down to the h-pawn. I don't really want to play h5 because that allows white to plant a minor piece into g5. So I figured that I should just focus or keep focusing on the queen side. And I played the move pawn a3 here. And when I played this move, I was feeling very optimistic that I'm getting some very interesting tactical sequence. And from here, the position gets pretty complicated after he takes, I take, he takes. And at first it looks like he's blundering because he is allowing pawn to d4. But if I play d4, he has either rook b3 or knight c4 to not lose a piece, so counterattacking the queen. So I didn't go for d4, but I went for pawn to c4. And I was still feeling optimistic, thinking that I have initiative. I'm still making progress. White has a double a-pawns, which are potential long-term weaknesses. And there's this pawn-bishop battery aimed at d3. And the idea is I'm sacrificing another pawn after he takes. I play pawn to d4, now forking the knight and rook. And he doesn't have knight c4 because the pawn's on c4. And after he plays rook b3, I play queen c5, I'm attacking the knight, and I'm going to win c4 because the knight has to move. So I essentially calculated this position back around when I played a3, and it just seemed like things were going in my favor, but I completely misevaluated what's about to happen, because after knight g4, I take on c4, he plays queen c2, and now I'm pinned on the c-file. And even though it looks like I have a strong setup, d4 is well supported, it's a passed pawn, there's a very big issue that my bishop's pinned and white has ways to attack it with either bishop f1 or knight d2 coming. On top of that, there's this constant worry of knight f6, and I have not castled yet. And the position is actually really delicate for black. Now, I still tried to play energetically, and I was still happy with my next move, knight to d5, attacking the bishop, and potentially having ideas of planting the knight into c3, which is a nice looking outpost in white's position. But as we're going to see, it doesn't really work out, because after knight d2, it's white with initiative, and now knight e4 is a massive threat, along with the fact my bishop's attacked. And if I play knight c3 to try and obstruct the pin on the c-file, he can very simply take, and take, and I'm still in big trouble. It's hard to save my bishop. There's rook c1 coming, so even if I play knight a5, I think rook c1 is just winning material. And yeah, it was around here, after knight d2, I realized I'm on the verge of losing, and it's hard to keep everything together. I played knight a5, trying to reinforce the bishop, keep the strong knight on d5, but then he plays knight e4, and momentum is now in white's favor. My queen's attacked, the bishop's still pinned, the rook is not takeable, and the knights are just invading my weaknesses. I played queen a7, and actually in this moment I was expecting knight d6, and I was hoping for this because then I can take. I should know I can't take the rook because I get mated, but I thought maybe I can castle here, and black is down the exchange. Actually, maybe I would take on f4 first and then castle. I thought the position is still tremendously complicated. White has an archipelago of pawn islands. I'm attacking the rook. I'll probably win back the d-pawn, but none of this happened. He didn't go in immediately for knight d6. He played a very strong move, which admittedly I didn't see coming, which is rook to b4. This is a great move. It's just attacking the bishop, and it takes advantage of the fact that if I take his rook, he can take back, undoubling the a-pawns, but more importantly, attacking my knight, and yeah, my position's just crumbling. Even though I'm temporarily up the exchange, I'll be losing material here, and white is in full control. Rook b4 also has the idea of queen a4, which is a pretty deadly check. So all the tactics are going in white's favor. I tried to keep the game going by provoking some simplification. I played h5, provoking knight f6, and after take, we trade a bit, but this is a trade that is very much in white's favor. The bishops are now enjoying the more open position. I still have issues with my bishop attacked, and if I move my bishop to a safe place, like let's say bishop d5, then queen a4 check. I was actually thinking about this during the game. If I play rook d7, I'm double pinned. The pawn and rook are pinned to my king. It's a free bishop for white. So at this point, I thought my best chance is to just leave my bishop available for capture and get my king safe by castling. Ironically, this was not a good way to get my king safe. I was actually expecting him to take, and after takes, I thought maybe there's a very slim chance I could hold this with the passed pawn if I can double up rooks behind the pawn, but he didn't go for this. He found a much stronger continuation. Rather than going for material, he goes for a mating attack, bishop h6, attacking my rook, and after rook f8, he plays bishop g7, and at this point, I fell below 6 minutes, but time is the least of my problems because white has a very simple plan of queen d2, queen h6, and queen h8 checkmate, and it's incredibly difficult to stop. The only resource I found here was to play queen c5, and after queen d2, play g5. It's pretty sad though, because I'm just kind of destroying my king side, but I tried to keep the game going. He played rook a4, another very strong move, attacking my knight. The knight is also kind of just stuck on the queen side. If I move back, then I think there's a boatload of problems, but probably rook c1 would be the simplest. So I play rook a8, losing the exchange, and after rook c1, I'm pinned down in so many different directions. I still have the worries about the queen coming in as well. I played a few more moves, queen d5, queen takes g5, we trade queens. I was trying to look for one last trick in the position, take on a2, he plays g6. Yeah, kudos to him for finding the cleanest way to convert, because when he plays g6, he is threatening basically a forced mating idea with rook takes a5, and rook c8. If I take on g6, he still has this move, take, check, and this is checkmate, and this is checkmate. So I can't really stop the eventual rook takes a5. I played e5 with 4 seconds left. He took my knight, and I resigned. And that was my first round game. Very humbling experience to play against a young grandmaster who completely outclassed me. I'm honestly not that upset about this game. I really haven't had time to check with the engine. Apparently, I made a few inaccuracies starting with a3. The engine does prefer white in this position. I can just show, sorry if the layout is a little bit off. I'll have to fix the layout for future videos, but yeah, it's plus 0.4. I don't think I was ever better this game. White had a slight advantage out of the opening, like even after I won Connect 4, it's plus 0.5 in White's favor. And yeah, I think he just played a really good game. Apparently I should have played d4 here, but I was so fixated on the initiative after a3, and yeah, this just really backfired, and this whole line did not work out. So definitely some lessons to take away from this game. I'm going to end it here because my next round is in less than 90 minutes. Hope you guys learned a thing or two along with me from this game. Stay tuned for more recaps. If you want to watch the games live, I'll leave a link to the Lichess broadcast below. Also, if you're in St. Louis, they're doing in-person commentary at the chess club. Grandmaster in Residence Ilya Nizhnik, also Yasser Serwan, I believe, is stopping by. So yeah, if you're in St. Louis, definitely check it out. There are a lot of top players in town. And now it's time for me to get some food, prepare for the next game. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys soon.